I am Laura Natush, Executive Director of New London Landmarks. Welcome to our presentation on state and municipal funding for homes, for homeowners. It's going to be in two parts. Erin Fink is going to start off talking about state funding and the Historic Homes Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program. That's a program that is available to people not just in New London, but throughout Connecticut whose homes are historic. She'll go into that in more detail. After that, we're going to have Eileen Baker talk about municipal funding only for New London houses. After that, we'll have questions and answer period after both of these presentations. Before we really get going, though, I want to thank the State Historic Preservation Office, who provides funding not just for this program, but for our work throughout the year. I also want to thank Parker Benjamin and Fiddleheads Food Co-op, both of whom are sponsoring all of our programs this year. I also want to let you know that at the very, very end of this webinar, there's going to be a demographic survey that comes up. If you're still on at that point, please fill it out because we need to collect this demographic information in order to remain eligible for funding from Connecticut Humanities. And then all of your answers will be anonymous. Cultural institutions and organizations throughout Connecticut are going to be collecting this same information through various programs and events. And then that information goes to the state and it allows the state of Connecticut to know who is and who is not benefiting from the programs that they fund. And then if somebody is not benefiting, if there's somebody that they're not reaching, it lets them know that there's some area where they need to do some more outreach or some more work. So yes, it's great for us, but big picture, it's good for the whole state of Connecticut. If you are not here at the very end of the program, you're also going to be getting an email tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. The subject line is just going to be thanking you for attending, but the link to that same demographic questionnaire is going to be in that email. And with that said, I'm going to introduce Erin Fink. She works in the State Historic Preservation Office. She is an architectural preservationist. She administers the same program that she's going to be talking about. And if you were to apply for this, you would be in contact with her through that process. Erin Fink, take it away.
Thanks for having me, and I will pull up my presentation. All right. So thanks again for hosting this presentation, Laura, and New London Landmarks. I'm going to be talking about the Historic Homes Rehabilitation Tax Credit. This is available to homeowners. I also administer the Historic Restoration Fund grants, which are available to nonprofits and municipalities. So the Historic Homes Rehabilitation Tax Credit program is designed to incentivize restoration and repair over replacement. There are several goals of this program, including supporting craftsmanship, encouraging homeownership, and adding to the local economy. I've also listed several others, including encouraging sustainability. So this program is really about incentivizing historic homeownership and those who love their historic homes too. The program provides a 30% tax credit up to $30,000 per unit for historic restoration and rehabilitation of 1 to 4 unit historic homes listed on the state or national register of historic places, either individually or as a contributing resource to a district. And there is a minimum required expenditure of $15,000 to use the program. So I did put an example here for a single family home, which is 1 unit. They're doing slate roof repair, masonry, repointing. All of the projects equal $35,000. So you take 30% of that and you get a $10,500 tax credit. So in addition to being listed on the state or national register, there are several other requirements that must be met in order to be eligible to use this program. The homeowner must be a state of Connecticut taxpayer. At least 1 unit must be the homeowner's primary residence. and the home must be used as a living space, so not a mixed-use property. Homeowners and nonprofit development corporations can use this program. Outbuildings are eligible for restoration so long as it contributes to the historic significance of the home, and the majority of the rehabilitation work is being performed on the main home at the same time. So this is related to barns on the property, carriage houses, and even garages. In order to confirm your home is listed on the state or national register, you can use our new online GIS system to search your address. The website is concris.ct.gov. It's brand new within the past couple of months and very user-friendly. There is a user guide on the website, and it's just as simple as inserting your address to see if you're listed. The application forms are all online. There is a combined Part 1 and 2 application, as well as a combined Part 3 and 4 application. Amendments are included in the Part 3 application, and this program is very, very popular. So SHPO may take up to 30 days to review each application. We do get about 40 applications per month. So just, make sure to build in that timeline when you're applying. I've included some frequently asked questions that are questions that are usually asked before homeowners apply. In general, it's important to note that the program can't be applied to any work that's already been completed. You may choose your own contractor, but we recommend getting at least 2 to 3 quotes to ensure you have a fair price. You can group projects together on one application, keeping in mind that the maximum tax credit voucher amount is $30,000. So that equals a total project expenditure of $100,000. And not to worry, there's plenty of money for this program, and it can be used multiple times so long as one application is closed out before beginning again. You will find a list of eligible and ineligible expenditures here. So the program is designed to incentivize the use of historic materials, proper rehabilitation practices, and upgrades to systems such as HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. Ineligible expenditures consist of new construction, cosmetic upgrades, changes to floor plans, and soft costs like architectural drawings and specifications. So, they're listed here, and they're also on our website. There's too many to read and bore you with. Updates to kitchens and bathrooms can be accepted so long as there is a minimum qualified historic preservation expenditure of $15,000. Non-preservation related expenses will receive a 65% credit. An example can be found here. So in this case, we see that the preservation related expenses are $20,000. So even though the project totals $80,000, we're going to find out what 65% of $20,000 is to get the total project cost, and then take the 30% tax credit from that total amount. So again, this only really pertains to kitchens and bathrooms and is an update to the statute from April 15th, 2015. The office receives many requests to replace historic wooden windows and wooden clapboards with modern substitute materials. So I put sort of a justification here, and just know that we rely on environmental studies, National Park Service studies, and firsthand experience when we urge homeowners to reconsider. So again, the idea here is repair rather than replace. In most cases, restored windows can often be more energy efficient with the addition of a storm window, which is also eligible. So to ensure the review of applications is consistent and backed by research, we rely on the National Park Service's Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. There are 10 standards, but the overall takeaway is rehabilitation over replacement, retaining historic character and significant features, and gentle treatments on historic materials. So you can read through all 10 of those on our website, and there's also a link to the National Park Service standards within the PowerPoint. I've included screenshots of the combined Part 1 and Part 2 applications. These applications must be submitted prior to any work being completed. So think of this information as the before that will be compared to the Part 3 and 4 after photographs and information after photographs. In this application, you will need to include a detailed scope of work, quotes for the work, and current photographs of the home, with additional photographs of specific project areas. So this is all done online. There's a link on the website to navigate to the application, and they're just uploads from your computer. The SHPO does not have a list of approved contractors, but I've provided a few resources that can help in finding relevant tradespeople. Preservation Connecticut has a paid restoration services directory, as does Window Preservation Alliance. And local preservation groups also have connections with local tradespeople, such as New London Landmarks, Hartford Preservation Alliance, New Haven Preservation Trust, and many more partners across the state. So getting back to the Part 1 and Part 2 application, the reservation is an amount of money set aside while the work is underway. The reservation is valid for 5 years, and we will email an approval through the online platform with your reservation number, project number, and reservation amount for your records. It is important to include quotes that are as close to what the total project cost will be, because once the reservation has been issued, it can't be changed. We do add a 10% contingency to hopefully cover any additional costs that may be incurred. If there are any changes to the scope of work, please make sure to email me so we can check to make sure it meets the standards, but it does not mean that the reservation amount can be increased. You will also need to note the changes in the Part 3 application, and the reservation turns into the voucher when the work is completed and the combined Part 3 and 4 application are completed. The final voucher amount will be calculated based on 30% of the total project cost. So it will either be the smaller amount of the initial reservation or 30% of the actual expenditures. So it's the lesser of the two. The combined Part 3 and 4 applications will include photographs of the completed work, receipts marked paid in full by the contractor, and the names of the homeowners that the voucher will be written out to. After the Part 4 is approved, I will send a copy of the voucher by email. So again, this is the online system, a link on our website, and you just kind of consider this the after photos and proof that the work meets the standards. After you've received the voucher, you have one of two options. The first is to claim the tax credit against your personal income taxes. So the voucher must be claimed in the same year that the work was completed. If the voucher is more than your tax liability, you can request a rebate for the amount or carry the remainder forward for 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, if there is still money left, it can't be claimed. So you must have an idea of your tax liability and decide up front. So again, this is the first option if you'd like to claim it against your personal state income tax directly. There is the other option after receiving the voucher, and that is to sell it to a C corporation. SHPO can facilitate the sale of the voucher to Eversource Energy, who is a C corporation that has been purchasing the credits for the past 20 years. They purchase the vouchers dollar for dollar and issue the homeowner a check for the amount. While we do facilitate the sale of the vouchers by acting sort of as the middleman for paperwork, we have no control over their payment timeline whatsoever. So we would just like to put that out there. But it has in recent months taken only about 3 months for homeowners to receive their checks from Eversource Energy. And Eversource does use it against their state tax liability. So this was just a general overview. If you have more specific questions, please put them in the chat and we can cover them. I can go back through some of the examples. You can email me at erin.fink@ct.gov or schedule a time to discuss. I have an online calendar scheduler, and I have office hours, virtual office hours on Monday afternoons if you'd like to talk through your project. So I will stop sharing just for a minute so we can look at the chat.
And I have a question.
Yes.
Do you recommend when somebody is working on their part one and part two, that they contact you before they submit it so that you have some sense already, is this going to qualify? Do most people do that, and do you recommend doing that?
Yeah, you can absolutely contact me if you'd like to see if you're, if you have a project that fits. But if you feel comfortable after you've reviewed all the documents, just starting your part one and two application, that's fine too. If your project's more complicated, I'm happy to discuss. And if it's straightforward, feel free to just get started on the application.
And I have another question that maybe you covered it and I missed it, but can you go through with people what that part one really is? Why, so that they understand why they're submitting part one and part two simultaneously?
Sure. Let me pull my PowerPoint back up so I can show um, a screenshot of what the application looks like. Okay, so the part one application is to make sure that you live in a historic home that's listed on the state or national register of historic places. So that's where you're going to use our new online GIS system to ensure that you're in a district or that you're individually listed. We also want to make sure that you are a state of Connecticut taxpayer and that this is your primary residence. So if you own two homes and one's a vacation home, that's not a home that would be eligible for this program. And in addition, for the part one application, we will want to see current photographs of your home just so we can see the current condition and why the work needs to be done. So the part one is really to determine that your home is in fact historic and what the current condition is. The part two is where we really get into the scope of work and make sure that you have a developed budget and also contractor quotes that correlate with that budget.
Is it true that if a house is listed on the state or national register, but it has been highly altered since its initial listing, so that that historic fabric is no longer there, does that maybe call into question a house's eligibility?
Yeah, so right now there is not a process to delist houses on the state register. So technically, if your house is in a district or is individually designated, you are eligible to apply. We would just want to make sure that the work that you're applying for is related to whatever remaining historic fabric is there. So if you put on a new addition or vinyl siding or some other sort of substitute materials that really changed the look of the home, the tax credit's not going to apply to those types of projects. But if you still have plaster that needs to be repaired or you have the original wood windows, those are the things that the program would apply to.
One of our attendees is asking, would it be possible to email or post the PowerPoint that you have put together?
It is on our website. So if you look on the Connecticut SHPO's website, there is a link. It's called the SHPO Historic Homes Tax Credit User Guide. And so after I prepared this presentation, I uploaded it there for everyone to reference.
By the way, for folks who are not preservation experts, when people say SHPO,
yes, sorry.
That's the acronym, State Historic Preservation Office. Another person says, it's great to see that bathroom renovations are now included. What about adding a bathroom?
That's considered a change to the floor plan. And so that would be ineligible. Essentially, you're creating a new space that wasn't there, and so you're altering the historic layout, and changing sort of the way that the layout and the floor plan reads. So
What if somebody was taking a small bedroom and turning it into a bathroom without changing the actual floor plan? Would that potentially be eligible?
yeah, we have seen that, and in that case, it would be the types of work that would be covered are plumbing, electrical systems upgrades, but not toilets, bathtubs, and the fixtures. So any of the kind of systems that you need to turn it into a bathtub, or if there's plaster repairs or, trim repairs, those types of things would be eligible.
Another attendee says, we have purchased a historic American four-square duplex designed as a rental property with 2 apartments and 1 attic area that has become an apartment. It was built in 1915. We want to restore the windows and take off the vinyl siding, but it is a rental property, not our primary residence. Is that eligible?
Unfortunately, it's not, because it's not your primary residence. If really the only way to make this work would be to restore the home and sell it to a homeowner that will reside in one of the units as their primary residence. But if you continue to own it as a rental property, yeah, it's not eligible for this program.
Yeah. And somebody's sitting next to me
Hello.
on our board. Go ahead and ask a question.
Just out of pure curiosity, my neighbor actually, it's their second residence. They just bought the house. They're planning on moving down, and they're returning the house back to original clapboard from asbestos. Also keeping the windows as well at the moment. I was just talking to them about it the other day, strangely enough. Is there anything, would they be able to look at when they becomes a permanent residence, then applying for?
Absolutely. Yep. So just make sure that it's listed on the State or National Register. But when they become primary homeowners, they could use that program. Yeah, we'd love to see them do window restoration, and hopefully there'll be some clapboards underneath that vinyl that are still in good shape, but otherwise, putting wood back on would be covered.
Circling back to the question that you answered about the rental property, that's not the owner's primary residence.
Yep.
That person came back and said that their daughter will live in the first floor of the duplex. Does that make it eligible? Would that daughter need to be added to the deed? Is there a way to make that work?
I think that by reading the statute, the title to the home, the person applying to the program must be on the deed of the home. So your daughter would need to be listed as an owner and she would need to apply to the program.
I saw that somebody had their hand raised.
Does the program include asbestos remediation? Yes. All remediation, whether it's lead paint, asbestos, PCBs, other kind of hazardous materials, all of that remediation is covered under this program.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So, for instance, a cedar shake house.
Yep.
That's 100 years old, if it were on the register.
Yep.
You applied and got it on the register to replace the cedar shake that's in poor condition, because that's what the original house had. Would that be covered?
Absolutely. Yes. And you can go on the GIS system to check if you're listed. If you're not, there is a process to become listed if you're interested. And so there's 2 people in our office that can do what they call a designation check and an eligibility check. So it just involves sending some pictures and history about your home. And then there's a listing process, but then you can access the program. So I would encourage you to do that.
And just for the sake of discussion, for instance, a front stoop, I can't think of another name. If you were to restore it and tuck point it as originally the stone were, rather than creating a Trex or some other kind of composite or vinyl, would be covered, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So in that case, it's really helpful to have photographic documentation of what was there. And so we know that you're essentially recreating what was originally there using the same form, design, materials, those types of things.
And I only mention that because, and we have a nice stone base for ours, and we would never put in the vinyl or Trex version, but just for the sake of conversation, I thought I'd ask.
Oh, it's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
That may be all the questions.
All right, I will share my screen for Eileen if you want to introduce her.
So Eileen Baker works for the City of New London. She is their Housing and Rehabilitation Manager. We are going to begin by talking about how to even access her contact information and information about the program on the city's website. Eileen stepped in for somebody else kind of last minute, and so we're not going to be able to look at her because of technical problems, but we'll be able to listen to her. And I will say that this part of this program is only going to be applicable to homeowners in New London. This is not a statewide program. This is funding strictly for New London residents. And with that, take it away, Eileen.
Good evening, everybody. First, I just want to talk about, I know Laura had put out there that we would be talking about the down payment assistance. Unfortunately, the last of that funding was used on Friday. A couple of weeks ago, we thought we would have more funding added to it, but that has since changed. So that program is winding down, unfortunately. If for some reason we do get more funding in the near future, you know, it would be advertised and I could reach out to Laura won't be there, Laura's office, and, you know, get the information to the people. But we do have what we call the Housing Conservation Program, and that is a housing rehab program that we deal with code compliance issues and weatherization.
Tomorrow, there will be showers with a high.
They can't hear us.
Fahrenheit and a low of 48
So you have to, so it's for homeowners only, so it's not for investment property. And this, we cover all types of things. A lot of issues fall under weatherization or code compliance: roofing, plumbing, heating systems, electrical, porch work, windows, doors, railings. It covers a lot. So it's an income-based program, and we follow the HUD guidelines, and they just came out April 1st. They actually dropped a little bit. So for example, a family size of 1 can make up to $63,900. And this is total household income for all working adults. Even if, you know, you have a 19-year-old college student that works part-time, their income would be counted. So it's for, so a single family property, we give out between 10 and 15,000 per unit, and that is what we call a deferred loan. In essence, it's really a grant. As long as you own and live in the house for 10 years, you do not have to pay anything back. if, for instance, you borrow, we did $10,000 worth of work, you decide you got to sell in 5 years, at the closing, you would have to pay back 50%. 10% is forgiven per year. The multifamily is a loan because that is an investment property, but it still has to be owner occupied. And that is again up 10 to 15 per unit. It's either 3% loan or a 6% loan. I'm gonna say 98%, 99% of them are 3%. The 6% is for higher income that may not fit into the low income category. So they can still get help, but they will pay back at a higher interest rate. You must own the house for a year, but we do suggest we have people calling that just bought a house, and we suggest calling in like 6 months because the process does take time. So you don't have to wait a year to start the application process. Give us a call about 6 months and we can start the process, see if you're qualified and get you into the program. We use our contractors. So once you apply and you are qualified by income and debt to income ratio, unfortunately, we've had a few people we've had to turn away because their debt to income ratio was too high and they wouldn't be able to afford another payment or even to maintain the house. Doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. Once you apply, Judy, who usually does the intake, would then turn it over to me and I manage more of the construction. We do lead testing, especially if there's children under 6, we have to address the lead issues. And once we have that report and the report from the housing inspector from our building department will come out and check code issues. I would write up the specs, and we have our own pre-qualified preferred bidders list. So if you have a contractor, you want to do the work, they're welcome to apply to our program to become a contractor for our program, but we do have our own contractors and it's generally low bid. If you have a contractor you want to do your roof and they weren't low bid, you as a homeowner could pay the difference to use that contractor. Otherwise, we have to use the low bid. What else would I want to say? On the screen is what we have as our preliminary application. This is on the city website. And this lists the documentations that you would need to bring. Here's the city website, and you would go to the Community Development Division, click on that, and then you have the HCP preliminary application. And this is, you need to gather this list of information, the required documentation. And once you have that together, call the office and set up an appointment, bring all that paperwork in, and then we would sit and do the complete application online. We're looking to possibly get rid of the Social Security, especially for the single family. So a lot of people don't like to give that information out. So we don't necessarily always need that. We do, our loans are managed by Capital for Change. They may require it. So in some cases, we may still need Social Security number. So you need your last year's income tax return. You have to make sure that you have filed taxes, since this is basically taxpayers' money. 3 most recent pay stubs from all working adults in the household, and then proof of any other source of income, such as SSI, workers' comp, your pension, child support, that type of information. A copy of your mortgage statement, if you have a first and or second. And then a copy of your homeowner's declaration page, as we need to see that you have homeowner's insurance. And also, you don't have to bring in the year's worth of electric bills and heat bills, but just figure out what your monthly average is and just jot that down. Same with the city water and sewer bills. You don't necessarily have to bring all those in, just giving us an idea of what you pay every month. A copy of all your current bank statements. And then make a list of all your outstanding debt balances for credit cards. We don't need to see all your statements, just write, okay, I owe, a MasterCard, I owe 2,000, my minimum monthly payment is 20, and just list them. So we have an idea of what your debt is. And again, Social Security is questionable if we need that. And then if it's a multifamily, we would need the income from your tenants as well. They have to also qualify with their income. And if it's a 2-family and you live in 1 unit, you have to live in 1 unit, and you're over income, but your tenant qualifies, we can still do work in the tenant's unit and even some exterior work. So it could still be qualified, even if you are yourself over income, or if you're under income and your tenant is over, vice versa, we can still do work on your unit. And generally the loans are up to 25 years. So, and it's generally $1,000 a year, the way they make the payments. So if we do $10,000 worth of work on your house, it'll be about a 10-year loan, about $100 a month payment average. Let me see, is there anything else that I missed? I think that kind of covers it. We get this money is through the Community Development Block Grant. We don't know how much we're getting this year, but we've had this program for over 40 years. So it's not like we run out of money like we did the down payment assistance. So this is an ongoing program, and we cover all sorts of type of work. Sewer, we don't do, and some of the same things that Erin listed that aren't eligible for her program, the same as ours. Not driveways, fences, architectural fees and stuff like that does not, or remodeling just to update your bathroom and kitchen. It has to be a code issue. We have replaced like countertops on rare occasions because they're peeling up and quite dangerous. So we have, but it's not typical. We really do a lot of roofs, boilers, windows, and doors, and things like that. Electrical, plumbing is kind of our main, but it's a pretty broad panel of what we do. I think that's really about it. Is there any questions about what type of work, or any other questions about qualifications? Or
We have gotten a few questions, not necessarily about what the type of work that would be eligible, but one person asked about the impact of the improvements on somebody's assessment and what that would do to their taxes. And is there any mechanism to avoid paying higher taxes if you've really improved your house?
unfortunately, there isn't at that time, but we were just talking about that the other day. We do not give this information to the assessor's office automatically. I know it's been talked about if we do that when we fix your house up, let the assessor's office know, but at this time we do not do that. So it probably unfortunately would impact the taxes on
But it
that.
doesn't trigger an immediate impact, right? It would be at the normal reval, right?
Exactly, because at this time we do not forward them the information. Hopefully it stays that way, but I can't guarantee that because it has been talked about.
Can either one of you or both of you talk about the possibility of, if you already did this, I'm sorry, layering both programs? Can somebody apply to both and be funded by both?
Sure. Eileen, do you want me to start and you?
Sure.
Okay. So for the historic homes tax credit, there's a minimum expenditure of $15,000. But it sounds like for the housing conservation program, you can get a loan for $10,000. So that helps you on your way to reaching that $15,000 minimum. And as long as you show that the work is paid for in full, you can get that 30% tax credit, which you could use to pay back some of your loan. And it sounds like a lot of the projects that qualify for the historic homes tax credit also qualify for the housing conservation program as well.
Yeah, so I'll back up a little bit. Is once the construction starts, once we have the specs, we do put it out to bid to our preferred contractors. We generally do 2 walkthroughs, mandatory walkthroughs. The contractors have to come and show up. And once we pick the low bid, sign contracts, there is a closing. So there is a small amount of closing costs, but it's built into the program so you don't have to come out of pocket for that. There is a closing and there is a lien put on the property down in the city clerk's office. So like for the deferred loans for the single family in 10 years, we do remove that. And then if it's paid off early, whether you sell or sometimes people take their income tax and pay off their loans, we do release the lien, send that to the homeowner. But they have to physically go down to City Hall to record that. They have to do that themselves. So there's a small closing cost, but that is all figured into the loan. And so once the closing is done, the contractors start the work. We do not pay anything up front. I will go and inspect if they want. We do partial payments. If we're doing a roof, okay, well, they've started the roof, we'll do a partial payment. And we do not do the final payment until the homeowner and myself agree that the work is done up to standards, up to par, done correctly, there's no issues. And then we pay the contractor through our office. And the homeowner will get copies of those payments. So that would help when you work with Erin, you will have copies of the checks that were paid to the contractor for the work. And we can also, give a copy of the specs and any other paperwork that she may need. We can certainly provide any of that for you. Put towards your $15,000.
Erin, one of our attendees had a question for you, and she wanted to know if glazing her 100-year-old windows would qualify.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. It absolutely would. We encourage it. I actually put a slide in here about restoring your historic wooden windows. So you can refer to this, but absolutely that would be a project we would love to support.
And here's another question that maybe you can answer.
Sure.
It's not really directly related to your program, though.
I'll try.
Okay. Do insurance companies charge more to insure a historic home? Is there an impact there?
I'm not sure I can answer that because every kind of company has different policies. Every house is, a bit different. So I don't know that I should answer and give the wrong information. But, something we like to say is that listing your home is purely honorific. It's only, when you get into a local historic district that you need to get approval for different kinds of work. So there's not really any restrictions. And so it may just be a matter of you relaying that information to your insurance company. And I believe we do have some one-pagers about this that I think I answered in the chat. My colleague Jenny Schofield has put together one-pagers that you can provide to your insurance company too, just to kind of explain what it really means to be on the state or national register, because I think there's still some confusion about it.
I fielded a call just today that somebody wanted to know if their house is in a historic district, did that mean that they couldn't do this or do that to it? I'm like, no, there's no restrictions. Unless you're using public funding.
Right. Or you're in a local historic district, but that's a kind of a local municipal body that, you would have to have voted into. So you'd be aware if you were in one.
Well, yeah, I would say that people may not understand what a local historic district, they might just think, local, New London, that's local.
Right.
We have we have more than a dozen historic districts within New London, but only one of them is considered a local historic district, which is the Star Street Local Historic District. And everybody there does have stricter limits on what they can and cannot do. But otherwise, no.
Yep, exactly. So it's just a matter of explaining that to insurance agencies, I think. And once you do, I hope that will help clear things up and you won't be penalized for any reason.
Yeah, I think they think that with a historic home that's going to have to be rebuilt to a certain standard and be much more expensive, and they just have a misperception of what that means.
Exactly.
I'm going to quick check for more questions. I think they have all been answered. Do you have any more? Do either of you have questions for the other person? Either of our presenters?
I am impressed with the city of New London, and I hope other cities have programs like this.
I think a lot of bigger cities do. I think all the rural, I think, are more like a regional, but it's a great program.
Yeah.
We help a lot of people, and people are very grateful, very thankful for this help at, these difficult times right now with the financial the way it is.
Yep.
But hopefully, Erin, we'll be able to have people that partner up between the two programs, because that would be awesome.
Yes.
Because it's hard for us. I mean, we do check if our properties are in historic districts. We do check with SHPO to make sure. Unfortunately, we don't do as much preservation per se as you do because of our limited dollars. But we certainly do get applicants, so it'll be nice to know that there's another resource that we could help get these, renovations done for these folks.
Absolutely.
We did get another question.
Okay.
Have either of you seen a lack, maybe this is more for Erin because the attendee specifically asked about historic homes. A lack of interest or a lack of applications from community members of color? And if that's the case, is SHPO working to bridge that gap somehow, or do you have any ideas about how that could be done?
The two areas that in the state that use the program the most are Hartford and New Haven. And so there's certainly been an interest from Black and Brown community members to use the program, and many certainly have. We are working to bridge the gap in low income areas by perhaps rewriting the legislation or the statute to lower the minimum expenditure requirement. I think that would make the program more accessible if it wasn't a $15,000 minimum, but maybe a $5,000 minimum. And I think that may help kind of bridge the gap there, because $15,000 is a lot of money. But it seems like, whoever buys a historic house does so because they love it. And so there's not a lack of interest in their history or the house. But yeah, I think in the low income areas, I'd like to see the minimum expenditure lowered.
Yeah, I agree. That would be terrific because that is a real barrier.
Right.
Oh, Eileen, I have a question for you. You've talked about the HUD income guidelines, but I think a lot of people have no idea what is a ballpark eligibility. I know it depends on how many people are in the house, but can you give some people some sense? Is it worth applying or not?
Yes, and you could certainly Google this and it comes up pretty easy, HUD income guidelines. So as I said before, a family of one has to make less than 63,900. Family of 2 is 73,100. Family of 3, 82,250. Family of 4, 91,350. 5 is 98,700. A family of 6 has to make less than 106,000. Family of 7, 113,300. And it goes up to a family of 8, which is 121,150. And just as a note, these did drop since last year. Not a lot, maybe $400 or so per family size. So they actually went down this year. And that's just came out April 1st. But and that is for all working adults in the household.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that most people are surprised to realize how broad those guidelines are.
And most people, when I say there's, and they, sometimes there's a chuckle like, oh, we make way less than that. So it is a pretty, I think, generous income limit.
I think I have one last question for Erin. Are you getting much interest from New London are New London homeowners taking advantage of this program?
I think currently I only have about 5 or 6, so I would love to see more. And I hope this presentation helps spread the word.
And I can certainly point people in your direction, Erin, when we are dealing with a historic property.
That would be great.
And we do, obviously, because there's a lot of historic properties in New London, but I will definitely, if they're on the registry, or I will definitely give them your information.
That's great. The more of us that work together, the more we can help. So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
I want to thank both of you, Erin Fink and Eileen Baker. You guys both worked a long day already, and then you agreed to do this. And I think that just speaks to how much you want to see people take advantage of these programs and benefit from these programs. I do not think we have any other questions. So with that, just before I say goodbye, I'm going to say before I end the webinar, I'm just going to remind people or tell people who showed up late that there is this demographic survey. It's going to show up on your screen at the very end. We would be very grateful if you filled that out. If this is not a good time to do that, you're going to get an email tomorrow thanking you for attending, and you'll have a second opportunity to do this. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you for hosting. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You too.